The Music Box Murders. Detective Clara Vega stood in the dimly lit room, her gaze fixed on the intricate music box perched on the victim's nightstand. It was unlike any she'd seen before, an ornate, antique design with delicate engravings of roses and vines. As she turned the small key, the haunting melody it played sent a chill down her spine. This was the third murder in as many weeks, and at each scene, the killer had left a similar music box behind. No fingerprints, no DNA, just the box and its eerie tune. The victims, seemingly unconnected, were found in locked rooms with no sign of forced entry. Clara's gut told her the music was the key, but the notes remained an enigma. The first victim was a struggling artist found dead in his loft. A small music box sat on his easel, playing a tune that no one could identify. The second, a retired schoolteacher, was discovered in her rocking chair, the music box balanced on her lap. Now the third, a tech mogul, lay sprawled in his high-security penthouse, his lifeless eyes staring at the ornate box on the bedside table. The murders were meticulously planned, but the melody gnawed at Clara. She enlisted the help of a musicologist, Dr. Julian Cross, who analyzed the tune. "It's incomplete," Julian said after hours of study. "Each box plays a slightly different variation, but together they might form a whole piece. It's almost like a puzzle." "Can you decipher it?" Clara asked. "It'll take time." But whoever composed this was a genius, and deeply disturbed. As Julian worked on the melody, another murder occurred. This time, the victim was a journalist, known for uncovering corruption in high places. The music box at her scene played a chilling new variation, and Julian confirmed it. The melody was expanding. But Clara noticed something else, hidden patterns in the music. She had a hunch the notes weren't just music, they might be a code. Clara immersed herself in the case, piecing together clues from the victims' lives. She discovered they all had ties to a shadowy figure named Vincent Armad, a reclusive composer who disappeared decades ago after being accused of plagiarism. His career had been destroyed by the very people now turning up dead. Could this be revenge from beyond the grave? Clara dismissed the supernatural and dug deeper. A rare photo of Vincent led her to an abandoned estate on the outskirts of the city. There she found a hidden workshop filled with unfinished compositions, and a stack of letters, all signed with the same name, Evangeline. Meanwhile, Julian cracked the code. The notes spelled out letters, forming a cryptic message: the final performance. Clara's blood ran cold. She realized the melody wasn't just a clue, it was a countdown. The killer was saving the grand finale for someone significant. She frantically searched the victim's connections and found a link to her own precinct. The final target was Police Chief Harold Grayson, who had once presided over Vincent Armad's public humiliation. Clara raced to Grayson's home, arriving just as the haunting melody echoed through the halls. She found the chief tied to a chair, a music box playing its sinister tune nearby. Standing over him was a figure in a black coat, Evangeline Armad, Vincent's daughter. "You destroyed him," Evangeline hissed. "But he'll be remembered. Through me." Clara drew her weapon, pleading with Evangeline to stop. But the woman only smiled and wound the music box one last time. "Goodbye, detective," she whispered, disappearing into the shadows. The case closed with Evangeline's escape. Clara couldn't shake the feeling that the melody wasn't over, that its final notes still lingered, waiting to play again. The music boxes were locked away as evidence, but every now and then, Clara swore she could hear their haunting tune in her dreams, a whisper of unfinished business. Because mysteries, like melodies, never truly end. Months passed since Evangeline Armad vanished into the night. Despite Clara Vega's efforts, the trail had gone cold. The music boxes were locked in evidence storage, and the murders stopped, leaving an uneasy calm in their wake. But Clara couldn't let go. She replayed the haunting melody in her mind, dissecting every note, every variation. Something felt incomplete, as though Evangeline's macabre performance wasn't truly over. Her instincts were confirmed when she received a package at her desk one rainy morning. Inside was another music box, this one more elaborate than the others. Its carvings depicted a theater scene, masked figures dancing under a crescent moon. Clara's hands trembled as she wound it. The melody played a familiar tune but with an unexpected twist, a new section. Clara's heart raced. This wasn't just a taunt. It was an invitation. The melody led Clara to an obscure address tucked away in the city's forgotten outskirts. The Crescent Theater, a derelict opera house scheduled for demolition. It was here she realized that Evangeline planned her final performance. Clara called for backup, but deep down she knew she had to confront Evangeline alone. The theater was dark and musty, the air thick with decay. Her flashlight swept across torn velvet seats and crumbling balconies. On the stage, a single spotlight illuminated a grand piano, and beside it stood Evangeline, dressed in black, her face pale and serene. "You came," Evangeline said softly, her voice echoing in the cavernous hall. "This ends here, Evangeline," Clara replied, her gun trained on the woman. Evangeline smiled faintly as though she had anticipated this moment for years. "You don't understand, detective. This isn't about revenge anymore. It's about legacy. My father's work, his brilliance, was stolen and silenced. I'm merely restoring his voice." She gestured to the piano. "The music you've heard is just the beginning. Tonight, the world will hear the masterpiece that was denied to him." Before Clara could respond, the music box in her pocket began to play, unbidden. Its melody fused with the haunting tune Evangeline began to play on the piano. Clara felt an almost hypnotic pull, the notes resonating deep within her, as if unlocking something primal and raw. "What are you doing?" Clara shouted, struggling to focus. Evangeline didn't answer. The music swelled, and Clara realized the entire theater seemed to vibrate with it. The air itself grew heavy, the walls groaning as though the building were alive. Suddenly she saw them, ghostly figures materializing in the seats, the victims. The artist, the schoolteacher, the journalist, and the tech mogul. They sat motionless, their hollow eyes fixed on the stage. "This is his audience," Evangeline said, her hands gliding over the keys. "And you, detective, will be the final note." Clara's training kicked in. She fired a warning shot into the air, the crack of the gun momentarily breaking the spell. Evangeline stopped playing, her expression turning icy. "You can't stop it," Evangeline hissed. "The music will live on whether I play it or not." Clara lunged forward, tackling Evangeline to the ground. The piano's eerie melody faltered as the two women struggled. But the music box in Clara's pocket kept playing, its tune relentless. "You think you're a savior, but you're just as trapped as the rest of us," Evangeline spat, her voice dripping with venom. Clara managed to pin her down, snapping handcuffs onto her wrists. "Maybe. But at least I fight to save lives, not take them." As Clara dragged Evangeline off the stage, the ghostly figures in the audience began to fade, their hollow gazes softening into something almost peaceful. The music box in Clara's pocket finally fell silent. Evangeline's final words echoed in Clara's mind as she was led away by officers. "You'll see, detective. The music never stops. It's only ever waiting for someone to listen." Back at the precinct, Clara placed the music boxes in a secure vault. She couldn't shake the feeling that the case wasn't truly over, but for now the city was safe. Late that night, as Clara sat alone in her apartment, she heard it, the faintest whisper of a melody drifting through the air. It was coming from her coat pocket. She pulled out the box she hadn't realized she'd taken from the theater. As she wound it one last time, the melody played anew. This time, however, it was accompanied by a low, haunting whisper. The words were clear, "The encore awaits." Clara froze, the words from the music box sending a chill through her bones. "The encore awaits." She stared at the intricate design of the box, its carvings now somehow more menacing, the tune more unsettling than ever. She had thought the case was over, that Evangeline Armad's twisted vengeance had been stopped. But now, with those words echoing in her mind, Clara understood that the final act was yet to come. She tried to shake off the feeling of dread creeping over her. It had to be a trick, right? A final game played by Evangeline, a way to taunt her from behind bars. But Clara knew better. Every instinct screamed that something was wrong. The box had been silent for so long, but now it had begun again. And this time it wasn't just a haunting melody, it was a message. Clara picked up the phone, dialing the number of Julian Cross, the musicologist who had helped her before. When he answered, she could hear the tension in his voice. "Detective, I've been listening to the boxes again," Julian said, his voice tense. "There's something you need to know. The melody, it's not just a pattern, it's a sequence of instructions. A map of sorts. It's leading somewhere." "Where?" Clara demanded, heart pounding. "Somewhere important," he replied, hesitating. I think it's leading you to the final performance. The real one. But I don't know what's at the end." Clara gritted her teeth, determination rising in her chest. "I'll find out." Clara raced to the abandoned Crescent Theater once again, the music box clutched in her hand. The air was thick with anticipation as she stepped through the rotting doors. The echoes of the past seemed to follow her, the faint strains of music filling the silence. She was alone, the only sound in the vast theater her footsteps on the cracked floor. She made her way to the stage where the grand piano still sat in the center of the spotlight. Everything seemed eerily still. But as Clara approached, she saw it, an envelope resting on the piano's bench, sealed with dark wax. Clara hesitated but picked it up, her heart hammering in her chest. She broke the seal and unfolded the letter inside. It was short, but the message was clear. The final note will always play last. But only the true listener can hear it. Suddenly, the theater grew darker, the spotlight flickering as if it were struggling to stay on. The air seemed to close in around her. Then from the shadows she heard it, the faint sound of a piano key being struck. Clara spun around, her gun drawn. A figure stepped out from the shadows, Evangeline. But she was different now, her face twisted in a cold, unnatural smile. She didn't move, instead she gestured to the piano, where the music box was now playing again, faster and more urgently. The notes felt sharper this time, almost electric. "You can't escape it," Evangeline said, her voice hollow. "The music will always find you." Clara felt a surge of fear but forced herself to stay focused. She had one chance to end this for good. She took a deep breath, her eyes fixed on Evangeline, then to the music box. The melody, now overwhelming, seemed to weave its way into her thoughts, urging her to listen, to follow its call. But Clara knew better than to give in to the temptation. The music was a trap. Evangeline had been consumed by it, and if Clara wasn't careful, it would consume her too. In that moment Clara understood the true meaning of the message in the letter. It wasn't about defeating Evangeline. It was about defeating the music itself. The final note wasn't for the killer, it was for the detective. Clara stepped forward, her voice steady. "I won't be your audience." With that, she reached for the music box and slammed it shut, cutting off the melody. The room fell into dead silence. Evangeline's face twisted in rage, but Clara didn't hesitate. She lunged forward, grabbing Evangeline's wrist and forcing her to the ground. The woman struggled, but Clara was too strong now, her resolve hardened by everything she had endured. "This ends now," Clara said, handcuffing Evangeline to a nearby pipe. With Evangeline arrested and the music box finally silenced, Clara returned to the precinct, her mind still racing. The case was closed, but the music lingered in her thoughts, an eerie reminder of the darkness she had faced. As Clara walked through the precinct halls, she paused for a moment in front of the evidence room. The door was slightly ajar, and inside she could see the stack of music boxes, silent for now. But Clara knew one thing for certain. The music might be over, but the story would always be waiting for the next listener. And as she turned away, she couldn't shake the feeling that, somewhere in the depths of the night, a new note was just waiting to be played.